Welcome back, WNST. Undefeated Ravens. It's 1-0. I mean, hey, it's just one game under our belt, but here come the Cleveland Browns, which gives me a chance to catch up. And none of the guys in Cleveland like to hear this from me, but I like them all individually, and we can't play Cleveland enough, although I did not like what the baseball team did to our baseball team over the weekend. This guy covers all things Browns, but is just as adept at discussing all things LeBron, as well as the tribe, who it feels like they're never going to lose a game again. Daryl Ryder joins us here. He is Right or Wrong Fan at 92.3, The Fan in the land of Cleve. DeShone Kizer, have you gotten your jersey yet there, Daryl?
No, haven't gotten the jersey yet, even though Hugh Jackson is using the H word, hope. He gives the Browns hope for the future. Of course, he's got to stay healthy. That's the key for him, but he is able to come out of that game Sunday unscathed despite getting sacked 7 times and driven into the ground on a couple other occasions.
All right, well, let's go piece by piece here and take this thing apart. I was scoreboard watching. I was in Cincinnati. I was one of the 30 fans that were actually at the game on Sunday. But what a mess they got down there. But that's another story altogether. And I'm scoreboard watching, and it felt like it was going to be your garden variety 31-13 kind of Steeler win, but it wasn't. And the more I've gone back and taken a look at some of the highlights and some of the footage and some of the situations there, I guess guys like you in Cleveland can portray it as not a moral victory, but certainly came closer to beating the Steelers than you have in some time, right?
Well, I mean, they were a blocked punt in the first 2 minutes of the game away from winning the game. So certainly the Browns did not look like the same Cleveland Browns team we've seen over the years. I think Greg Williams has a lot to do with it. I think that some of the young talent that they have assembled has a lot to do with it. Ignorance is bliss for them. A lot of these guys don't really understand that the Browns are supposed to be terrible every year, and those type of things. They don't really have a grasp on just how awful the history with the Browns has been over the last 2 decades, and so you got a max effort out of them. Like I said, that block punt right out of the chute there. You're right. I mean, you're sitting there, you're watching the first series. Kizer goes 3 and out. They lose 9 yards on the series overall, then the punt gets blocked. It's already 7-0. You're just sitting there saying, okay, well, it's football season. This is going a very Brownsian way. And then they find a way to gather themselves, and, Kizer puts together a beautiful 12-play, 68-yard drive, scores on a 1-yard touchdown run. All of a sudden, the game's tied, and you're like, oh, okay. And in the Browns defense, outside of Antonio Brown, they really held that potent Pittsburgh Steelers offense in check pretty much for the entire afternoon. So it was a loss, and that's what it comes down to, wins and losses. But I think that the Browns come out of that game feeling a lot better about themselves than a lot of people thought they would be going into that game.
Daryl, I kid you about the Kizer jersey thing only because, look, I've watched a lot of football with you over the years. That poor SOB, it sits in front of me in the press box below in the club level every single year. I've seen his hair get gray. I've seen the jerseys go from Couch to Campbell to, Manziel, all the way along, right? And I have friends that are Browns fans beyond you and the scope of my media buddies. Why him? Why buy into him right now? And clearly they jettisoned Osweiler. Didn't think much of that. I don't see much there on the depth charts that says that anybody's going to be competing with him for playing time. I mean, obviously they could have had another RG3 thing there if they wanted to keep that around for a longer period of time. But this kid went out and showed some poise in week 1, as you would think a Notre Dame guy would. But you already had a Notre Dame guy there that couldn't make it, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's why you buy into DeShone Kizer. 6'4", 233 pounds with a strong arm. That's why you buy into him. He's very similar in stature to Ben Roethlisberger of the Steelers. To me, when I watched him on Sunday, Nestor, what was really the only concern is that internal clock. The fact that the speed of the game, I think, is still a little fast for him. He did get sacked 7 times. He got drilled a couple of times really hard. Ryan Shazier got a couple of licks in on him.
Yeah, he always does, Shazier, right? I mean, we're familiar with his work, yes.
Yeah, so, but what I liked was his poise, some of the throws that he made. He threw a beautiful ball up the seam to Ricardo Lewis that was just right on the money. There's potential there. I mean, he, from what I've seen in practice through training camp, the preseason, and even through week one, it's the most promise that I have seen a rookie quarterback show in such a short amount of time. I have to go all the way back to Tim Couch in 1999. Brady Quinn didn't look like this early on. Brandon Whedon didn't look like this early on. Colt McCoy. I can go through the 9 other rookies that, have started for this franchise over the last 18, 19 years, and they haven't looked as good as Deshaun Kaiser looks this early in his career, and that is why I think Hugh Jackson is using the H word, and that is hope.
All right, so then the hope would then be on Hugh Jackson, right? And you've been around for all of this. You and I have been doing radio long enough that we've discussed at least 3 or 4 coaches from the Browns, going back to Mike Pettin and beyond that. How's that experiment working out? I mean, I'm a big fan of Hugh. I know Marvin Lewis is a big fan of Hugh. I know Ozzie Newsome and Brian Billick and the people he worked with here. Everyone's a big fan of Hugh. I mean, I think even in Oakland where he had his 5 minutes, he won some people over there. I know he's won people over in Cleveland, but it's still a loss is a loss is a loss. And Daryl, I think they're going to win 4 games this year, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't bet on 6, but I probably wouldn't bet on 2 either. Surviving there has been the hardest part. It hasn't been being competent. I think Pat Shurmur was competent. I think, Chudzinski was competent. I know Pettin was competent. I mean, they've had competent people there. But then there is judging the results and the itchy trigger finger of the incompetent people that own the franchise.
Well, and the other thing, too, is what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, the Mike Pettin, Ray Farmer era was one of the most caustic, inflammable eras that the franchise has been through. I mean, the GM and coach absolutely despised each other. So I think as long as Sashi Brown, Paul DePodesta, Andrew Berry in the front office continue to work well with Hugh Jackson and the coaching staff, I think this thing has a chance. And part of the reason why you've had so many of these flammable regimes in Berea is you alluded to, because the owner, everyone, when it's December and the team's out of contention, the owner wants to know why and who's to blame and all those type of things. And so everyone wants to point fingers at each other. And I think that Jimmy Haslam has finally reached a point. We talked to him before the season during training camp, and he finally came out and said, hey, I'm pointing to 2018, 19, and 20 is my window when I think that we're going to be ready. Right now, this is a building process that I trust my front office to continue to bring in young talent. We're going to build this thing through the draft a ton of players, see who works out. Who doesn't work out will be jettisoned, and we'll just keep drafting guys until we assemble a football team. I mean, the 18 players drafted over the last 2 years on this roster right now. This is the youngest football team in the NFL with an average age of about 25 years old. There's a premium emphasis placed on coaching by Hugh Jackson. I mean, he's in Deshaun Kaiser's ear throughout practice, as well as, you saw during the game on Sunday, between every series. Those two were really joined at the hip.
Well, he's always been the quarterback whisperer. That's his job. Yeah. That's what he knows, right?
But, that's why they brought in Greg Williams to really coach up this defense and get you're starting to see the difference. When you watch the Browns practice in training camp, to a degree, it's like watching a high school or college practice. And I don't mean that as a negative or derogatorily. I'm not taking a pot shot at the Browns, not by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a lot of teaching that is going on the field with this coaching staff. Hugh Jackson has surrounded himself. Guys like Al Saunders. He's 70 years old. God, I hope that when I'm 70, I have the type of energy that Al Saunders has. Watching him run around with these receivers and up and down the field during practice, yelling, screaming, coaching, all those type of things. So, a premium has been put on coaching and development of young talent. And that's why if you're looking for a quick fix in the Browns to be turned around tomorrow, that's not going to happen because that's not their plan. They're trying to build a program here because, quite frankly, a program really has never been built here. The team has always been slapped together in a haphazard, fashion, just to try and appease the fans and ease their pain. And the team was still going 4-12 and 5-11. So, a premium on talent development has been placed here, and Sunday, I think, was the first glimpse of some progress being made in that department.
Here's Daryl Ryder. He is our longtime friend and foil in the land of Cleve at 92.3, the Fan there. He is Right or Wrong Fan at on Twitter. That's RUITER, Wrong Fan. And, from the very beginning, I feel like Joe Thomas came off the boat with the franchise, right? Like, I feel like he was picked right after Tim Couch and has been there. And as much suffering as that poor SOB in Section 218 below me has done year after year, and you and all of my other Browns fans, I remember in the third season of the Ravens here in 1998, a guy named Jim Harbaugh was our quarterback here, and I sat in the basement of the barn, which is where I used to do my Monday Night Live show, and John Ogden was out with me and was, had a beer and had some crabs and confided in me. And John, I've told this story with John on the radio before, and John said to me, Nestor, I've been here 3 years and we're winning 4 games a year. I don't like losing. I'm not going to stay. I will leave here if we're going to lose. I'm not going to stay here and lose. And then the next year, Billick came in and Ogden bought in. The next year, there was a Super Bowl and, and all that, and now Ogden's got a jacket and a ring out and Canton never went anywhere else. In the case of Joe Thomas, I'm sure he's had these thoughts time and time again, and yet he's still there, and he might be going to Canton before it's all over with, but I mean, dude, is he ever going to play in a playoff game?
I don't think so, because I think that by the time the Browns are ready to contend, Joe Thomas will be retired. He's a guy that's been fiercely loyal to the Browns. There was a stretch of a couple of years there where his name was popping up in trade rumors. I mean, they literally came within a phone call to the league office of him being traded to the Denver Broncos.
I remember that. I mean, that was sort of like a done deal, right? Like, I mean, that was kind of reported as that was just going to happen, and it made all the sense in the world for the Broncos at that point, right?
Yeah, and what happened was the Haslam stepped in and said, no, we can't do that because, we don't want backlash from our fans. We're worried about how fans are going to feel about us trading really our only Hall of Fame caliber player.
It's bad enough we suck. We can't be giving away our best players. I mean, it's like the Orioles right now with Machado. But I'll get to the Indians in a minute. I want to stay with the Browns. It's more fun to me to talk to you about the Browns than it is the Indians right now.
Didn't really enjoy that weekend, did you?
Yeah, we didn't like that much at all. I mean, I usually have fun in Ohio. I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah. They're the hottest team in the game right now.
Here's how bad it was, dude. And I literally thought of you on Sunday night because I was at the place that you and I have made famous, Indianapolis, Indiana. I escaped Cincinnati after the game to go see the 4 Irish lads play the football stadium while the Colts were losing by 50 points in L.A. I was up in Indianapolis, and it's amazing. Daryl, I'll be honest with you, I've never been to Indianapolis when it's been above 32 degrees. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, me either.
It's always horrific there. And I'm like walking around with short sleeves. The dome is open. I swear to God, I'm not being a jerk. I didn't know the dome opened. I literally,
you didn't?
I thought it was just like a dome. I didn't know, like, that literally, I didn't know that the roof opened up. I didn't know that. And so you two played with an open dome. So, little things you learn. I've only stood in that building, 15 times for the last 12 years, and playoff losses and horrific ass beatings at the hands of Peyton Manning with my dad's stolen helmet on, all of that. Not that you know anything about that being in Cleveland, but I had to get out of Ohio, dude. This whole tribe thing. I mean, be honest with me. You'll talk Browns with me, but nothing matters there more than the Indians right now, right?
Not until LeBron starts up here. Not until he starts the farewell tour in about a month.
Dude, this Indians thing's been unbelievable, though, really, right?
Oh, it's incredible. And it takes me back to those 90s teams, especially the 95 club, except for I think that this year's Indians team is more complete because of, their pitching staff. I mean, Michael Brantley's on the DL, Jason Gipnis is on the EL. That's 2 star players that's not in this lineup, and, they were able to go on what is historic winning streak. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Of course, last year, right after the Cavaliers won the NBA championship, they rolled off 14 straight, and you got that feeling like, man, are the Indians ever going to lose a game again? Then they ride that all the way until inning number 10 of Game 7 of the World Series before they fell to the Cubbies. But, they look like the team to beat right now. The Dodgers have really stumbled and fallen on their face down the stretch after their hot start. And this is the time of year when you want to get hot, Nestor. You don't want to be peaking in June and July. You want to get hot late August, early September, so you're ready to go for, that postseason run. And that's why I really like the Indians. And no one really scares me right now in the American League. With the way the Indians are playing under manager Terry Francona, I like the Indians to get back to the World Series again, and hopefully this time they can finally win the thing.
Dude, if my choices are the Indians, the Red Sox, or the Yankees, I'm going to be a Tribe fan. I got nothing against those poor people down in Houston. In the end, I'll probably be getting the old sunburst Nolan Ryan, J.R. Richard, Jose Cruz jersey out and putting on that swag for October, get me a shirt. But it's going to be a great postseason all the way around. There's big hopes with the Nationals. The Dodgers haven't won in 2 weeks now, which is really, really strange. But baseball's heating up, but around here it's football. He is Daryl Ryder from The Fan out in Cleveland, Right or Wrong Fan on Twitter, and we're going to move this thing back into the Browns lane. All right, so give me a little look at the roster because it has turned over a little bit. And we talked about Joe Thomas and Joel Bitonio and some of the usual suspects, but we're not going to see Myles Garrett here. But based on the preseason, there's nothing but thought that he's going to be a game wrecker at some point in this league.
Yeah, Myles Garrett has shown that he has the potential to be a perennial Pro Bowl, if not all-pro talent. Health is obviously of paramount concern. Garrett's not expected to be back for a couple of more weeks with that high ankle sprain, and that's just another one of those things. Nestor, we can talk about all the bad decisions that the Browns have made over the years. We'd be here for hours upon hours upon hours, but they've also had some pretty rotten luck, and here you go. Everyone's, buying their tickets because they want to see Myles Garrett go against Ben Roethlisberger on Sunday afternoon, and in typical Browns luck, or bad luck, if you will, that dark cloud still hovers over the franchise. He gets hurt on the Wednesday leading up to the game, and is out for an undetermined amount of time. It's unfortunate, but over 40 members of this 53-man roster. You want to talk about a house cleaning? Over 40 members of this roster have been added in the last 2 years alone. That is a complete overhaul of a franchise in a rather short amount of time. And again, the bulk of those 40 guys they're new to Cleveland, they've got less than 3 years of NFL experience under their belt. So that speaks to the youth. I'll give you another defensive player, though, that I think that Ravens fan, I said this last week in a couple of spots I did with some Pittsburgh radio stations, Jabril Peppers. He's going to be a name that I think the Baltimore Ravens fans are going to come not to like. He is a very talented safety for the Browns. He's able to play a variety of positions in Greg Williams' defense. You can put him up in the box to stuff things up there. You can drop him into coverage, and he'll make plays there. So he is all over the field. And also, he's the returner, the kick and punt returner as well. And he had a 25-yard return Sunday against the Steelers. So Jabril Peppers, get to know him because I think he's got star potential written all over him. And Ravens fans, I don't think, are going to enjoy watching him.
See, just when you Cleveland folks thought Belichick screwed you over before he went up to New England, he did send you a little gift in Jamie Collins, though, right?
Yeah. And Jamie is one of those pieces or cornerstones, if you will, of this team going forward. They gave him the big contract extension early in the offseason to keep him here before he hit free agency. You've got guys like Christian Kirksey, who they drafted a couple of years ago. They gave him an extension. Kirksey was one of the leading tacklers a year ago, but he's a name that not many know because, the Browns were 1-15, and nobody's going to talk about the worst team in football. And a lot of people want to assume, it's a bad team. Somebody's got to make.
Yeah,
the
they
plays.
were. They were 1-15, weren't they? I feel like they had to have won 3 or 4 last year, but they didn't. They didn't.
Well, they almost did. They blew a lot of games early. Including one against you guys when they were up 20-0, and I think the Ravens ended up winning that game.
Do you remember the look on my face when we were losing 20-0 when I went up to pee at the end of the first quarter?
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, and then they blocked the extra point and returned it for 2, and then the roof caved in on the Browns, and the Ravens really never looked back.
Those guys in front of me in that club section were so happy, you know? They're just so happy when anything good happens,
the good old days,
you know?
Nestor, you know? But, I mean, and the roof caved in on the season because then the following Wednesday after that game, Corey Coleman, last year's top pick, 15th overall, broke his hand in practice. So he was lost for 6 weeks, a bunch of quarterback injuries. They went through that. I mean, that Ravens game, I think, really began that downward spiral to that 14-game losing streak before they were able to eke that win out over the then San Diego Chargers on Christmas Eve. But those days are behind them. You know, this team has forgotten about that. Hugh Jackson doesn't even want to talk about it. It's not even mentioned here really all that much. In conversation with players in the locker room, and that they are full steam ahead with this plan of really, this youth movement, developing talent. And I really liked what I saw. I know it was a loss, but I loved what I saw from this team. And if they're able to play that way they did Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Nestor, if they play that way this week in Baltimore, and if they play that way for the remaining 14 games that are on the schedule, Cleveland Browns are going to win a couple games this year. They might win 4 or 5. Because there was a lot to like. The strength of this team is on the defensive side of the ball with new defensive coordinator Greg Williams. That's where they're strong. The offense is really a work in progress, but that defense has the potential to be really, really good this year.
Here's Daryl Ryder, Right or Wrong Fan, out on Twitter as well as at 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. We spent last week discussing the Cincinnati Bengals and, their remanufactured offensive line and what happened to Whitworth and where's Zeitler. And then we played the game on Sunday. It was very, very obvious that their offensive line was a mess. Clearly, the Browns had money they could have given to anyone. Maybe, a guy of Zeitler's caliber didn't want to take their money and sign up there to lose alongside of Joe Thomas and Joel Bitonio, who also got paid in the offseason. But in the case of Zeitler, he took the money, came to Cleveland, and is, part of, I guess, one of the strengths of their team needs to be their offensive line. They certainly have put a whole lot of resource into that, right?
Yeah, over $120 million, $64 million in guaranteed cash between Zeitler, J.C. Tretter, the new center who they signed as a free agent from Green Bay, and then, of course, as you alluded to, the Joel Bitonio contract extension. And that's, I think, why Hugh Jackson was even more so comfortable starting DeShone Kizer because of the investment they made in the offensive line, the expectation that they're going to be able to run the football. Running game is a young quarterback's best friend. Because that was a problem last year. I mean, all the injuries they had with the quarterbacks. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think that there was a 48 sack differential. In other words, the Browns gave up 48 more sacks than they actually recorded by their defense. I mean,
that's a big number.
Yeah, it's a very big number.
That's not a good plus minus if you're playing hockey.
No, it's about as good as 1 in 15 was, but. So that's why they invested all those resources in the offensive line. Now, Kizer got sacked 7 times Sunday, and you say, well, boy, that was money well spent. Well, part of the reason that Kizer got sacked 7 times is because of that clock, You got to get the ball out, as you know, 3.5 seconds. If it's still in your hand, that means your quarterback's in trouble. You've got to make decisions a lot faster, hit those windows quicker, make quicker decisions, and really speed up that internal clock. And those are things that to me, Nestor, that comes with experience. That comes with playing. He'll get sacked enough at some point he's going to learn his lesson. You just hope he doesn't get injured in the process. But those sacks were not a byproduct of the offensive line not doing their job. Those were a byproduct of just a very young quarterback.
Daryl, for you with this team and improvements and where we're going, obviously you're a little bullish on them based on the Steelers game. I think the one part about it is the schedule this year, right? Like, after this, they do get a little bit of oxygen, and part of what comes with 1 in 15 is a last-place schedule for what that's worth year to year. But there are some identifiable games on their schedule that, they could be flirting with 500 at some point in October if things were to go the right way, and they really are an improved team.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, I think 21st ranked schedule in the league. Opponents' win percentage last year was around like 464 and change, something like that. But, you look at the upcoming schedule. Listen, I know, Baltimore's feeling good about themselves, what they were able to do last week in Cincinnati, but I still think that, the Browns are capable of surprising the Ravens on Sunday afternoon. You've got the Colts. As long as Andrew Luck isn't on the field, I like the Browns to win that game. The Bengals really don't look all that great. I think that certainly is a winnable game. The Jets are on the schedule. There's win number 3 possibly. The Chicago Bears are on the schedule. There's a possible 4th win. So
they play the Texans. I saw the Texans play last week, bro. Don't count against them. You got Lions, Jaguars, Chargers. I mean, there are plenty of games. You don't have the toughest teams other than the Ravens and the Steelers. There's nothing there that feels like a complete buzzsaw, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, and that hopefully, and I guess the biggest thing that I took away from Sunday when I watched that game, and I know it's one game and, whatever, but just the hopelessness of, man, this is going to be a really, really long, miserable year. I didn't leave the stadium feeling that way about the team. And when I went into the locker room earlier this week after the game, again, didn't really get that feeling of, man, this is just a hopeless situation that they're just going to get their lunch pail handed to them every afternoon. I felt that way last year watching the team, and especially early on, some of those games they lost the Ravens. They blew a second-half lead against the Redskins, Miami missing that kick and losing in overtime as time expired and stuff like that. It was a helpless feeling, and I don't get that sense this year. That hopelessness, that helplessness that just hung over the Browns last year, that's not there this year. And again, as I said earlier, if they play the way they did against Pittsburgh Sunday afternoon here in Cleveland for the remaining 15 games, they're going to be in a lot of games, have an opportunity to win a lot of games, and I think they're going to find a way to pull out maybe 4 or 5 wins on that schedule, which, by the standards of what happened last year, that, quite frankly, is a quantum leap forward, for a young franchise. But they really are. They're going to lean on their defense, their offensive line, and the running game to try and get them through these growing pains until DeShone Kizer is able to develop. And the key for that guy is he's got to be on the field. I mean, the Browns have had one quarterback in 19 seasons. This is the 19th season they've been back. Tim Couch, back in the 2001 year that they actually made the playoffs, he started all 16 games. He's the only quarterback to be able to do that since this team has come back. And that's how low the bar is. So my first check mark for DeShone Kizer, can you give me 16 starts this year? That's test number 1. And then we can get into, dissecting his game and where he really needs to make those improvements. But he's got to be healthy, and he's got to be on the field to have any chance if he's going to develop into the Ben Roethlisberger, the Joe Flacco, the Andrew Luck, the dependable, reliable franchise quarterback. But a positive was, again, he took a couple of really vicious shots on Sunday, and he kept getting up each and every time unaffected by them, so that was a positive.
He is Daryl Ryder, Right or Wrong fan. By the way, you're coming in here this weekend. We'll make sure you don't have any tourist crab cakes while you're here. We're a dozen weeks away from visiting you. I come out there December the 17th. We play in the land of Cleveland. By the way, I've never been to the Christmas Story House, and I'm feeling like Saturday, December the 16th is going to be my day to have milk and cookies and coffee and whatever bonbons they have at the. Is that worth doing, the Christmas Story House, for a nerd like me?
But I would recommend you make your reservations early because they get a little busy around the holidays. I made the mistake one time of hitting up the Christmas Story House in December, and it took me 2 hours to get in.
All right, well, I'm not doing that. Ain't a damn thing in Cleveland worth waiting 2 hours for. I mean,
but if you make your reservations early, you won't have to wait the 2 hours. That's
all right, hours in admission. I'm on the website right now. I'll get it done before it's all $11 to look at a leg. I got a leg lamp right in the corner here, Darryl. I got a leg lamp in my shot every video I do. You know that.
They'll even let you hide under the sink like Ralphie did.
Well, I'm pointing at the leg lamp. If I bring that with me, they better give me a discount or something like that. But so I'm coming out there. If DeShone Kizer's standing upright and the Browns are some semblance of 5-8 at that point, I guess everyone would feel good about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, anything above 1 win, I think people should feel good at that point.
All right, 7 days a week, open 10 to 5 on Saturdays, and we recommend that during the Christmas year that you make reservations. All right, I'll make a reservation for crying out loud.
What did I just get done telling you?
All right,
reservations now.
This is why I have friends in Cleveland. You ask local people, and you find out things. Great having you on, Darryl, as always. Keep the faith. We'll see you in Baltimore this weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks, Nestor.
And either way, he doesn't want to hear it. We'll be 2-0, and they'll be 0-2, and they'll make some story about how they felt good about losing. It's the Browns. It's what they do. The BuyItToyota.com Audio Vault is here for you 24 hours a day. Even from Cleveland, we come in loud and clear from wherever you happen to be. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Reminder, Wednesday, Greenmount Station, we're bringing out Ryan Jensen as well as our new starting right tackle, Austin Howard, who I got to meet last year as a member of the Oakland Raiders. They now Ravens, and we'll be together at 7:30 on Wednesday night at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. Come on out, get swabbed for the registry. And speaking of non-tourist crab cakes, I can't think of the most untouristy, legitimate, authentic, more delicious crab cake than that at Greenmount Station. We'll be eating those on Wednesday night. Come on out and be a part of it up in Carroll County. The SSV on WNST is heard here on Thursdays from 3 until 5. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzis and Coons Ford of Security Boulevard sponsor our WNST tech service for breaking news, injury reports, any updates at all. Never spam. It's always there for you. In London next week, we'd love to see your face in our place from Saturday, 11 to 3. We're going to be at the Fox at XL. It's a fantastic pub, as they say there, with the fish and chips and the pints. We're about 2 blocks away from the Emirates Air cable car. We're going to march down there at 3 o'clock and go over to the O2 Arena. It's going to be a wonderful, fantastic trip, very memorable trip next week for London. If you are going, toss me an email, hit our website. We'd love to see you on Saturday celebrating in purple. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.